Good morning, and thanks for joining us on the Thursday edition of TVC Breakfast. Let's head straight to our discussion this morning. Now, the Senate has an enormous task on its hand. The Red Chamber will today debate the report of its joint committees on petroleum on the Petroleum Industry Bill. The joint committees on petroleum consist of the upstream sector and downstream sector and the gas sector, and they had been meeting with relevant stakeholders in the sector to sort out grey areas of the bill. The Group Managing Director of the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, Mele Kyari, will also brief the Senate on the bill at a closed-door session, which will last for an hour. The long-awaited petroleum industry will seeks the reform of Nigeria's petroleum industry and may be passed by the Senate today. May be passed. Now, joining me to discuss this is energy consultant Bala Zaka. Good morning. Thank you for joining us on TVC Breakfast. Now, for the past 20 years, there have been various attempts at reforming the industry, and then attempts to also, pass this bill in 2009, in 2012, 2018, and we have seen attempts.
Correct.
And now we are seeing the Senate saying, and even the House of Reps saying that they are willing and ready to go ahead and pass this bill. But they must have this conversation today, according to them, which to check issues, gray areas that have seemingly been a bottleneck in the past years. Now, talk to us how you see this conversation, how you think this conversation might go, and perhaps would it give a nod to the passing of the bill?
Honestly, what is just going to happen can be summed up this way. It's a case of having something coming too late than never at all.
Right.
Honestly, it's a case of having it coming even very, very late than never. Because as far as investment is concerned in the Nigerian oil and gas industry, we have lost so much. Investors have waited, and decided to look for better investment havens. You're talking about a situation where in the last probably more than a decade, people who had investment drives, came in, with the enthusiasm and have been waiting for more than a decade. If your country home sent you to a place like Nigeria or your company, and in the last 20 years you kept sending report back that you were waiting for the regulatory standards of the Nigerian oil and gas industry to be fixed, I'm telling you, you're going to be fired. And for those investors, you're talking about people who probably collected loans. And if you collected loans and in the last 10 years you were yet to invest because you were waiting, that is what we call cost of capital. And for even shareholders' funds, they will be waiting for what we call also dividend. So from all angles, it's just a case of better late than never.
But as it is now, are you saying that you are confident that this might just be what we have been waiting for, that the bill might be passed today? Or are you saying that despite the fact that it's coming late than never, it may not really address the challenges we have seen over the years?
It will not. To be honest, I don't want to say I don't care, but to some extent, honestly, I'm 100%, not 99%. I'm 100% disappointed. And because of this PIB, for the first time, I want to appeal to our political leaders, especially politicians, since we came into politics. If you have something that has to do with national interest, remove party affiliations. Because before the coming of the current dispensation or political dispensation, we knew we had a PIB document that was like 223 pages. It was a 223-page document. That was more than probably a decade ago. Yes. As at that time, there were only 3 contending issues. One, the power of the minister. Yes. The second one, how to handle or treat host communities.
True.
Then the third one was frontier exploration. And let me handle them. in the case of the power of the minister, people were looking at the human being rather than the office. And this is how I will explain it. You see, every country you go to, the minister of defense is always a powerful minister.
Absolutely.
The minister for finance is always a powerful minister. And the minister for energy, in the case of Nigeria, petroleum, will always be a powerful minister. So rather than looking at the individual maybe abusing his or her powers and trying to whittle down the power of the person or the power of that office, what you should do is you should take time in looking for the right people that will occupy that office or sit on that chair without necessarily abusing the power.
Absolutely.
So that was what happened, you know, in the case of the power. But they were trying to whittle down the power of the minister, which was wrong. Then the second one had to do with host community. You know, all you needed to come was to come up with the definition of host community. But as we speak today, nobody can even tell you the definition. Years ago, when many of us were interested, you know, different countries, scholars, financial institutions were interested, my definition of host community then, with respect to the oil and gas industry, was an area that is associated with physical extraction of oil and gas. And that, when you look at that, we are now referring to where drilling and exploration activities take place. But that does not mean you don't have locations, different places in the country where you probably have depots, you know, discharge. All those places also suffer from impacts of oil spill and the rest. But you can give them their own definition.
Absolutely.
But in terms of, you know, that host community, you must be talking about a place that is associated with physical extraction. But places that have maybe depots, whatever, oil spills, then you come up with their own, you know, definition of communities that probably are impacted by activities of probably products of oil and gas activities. That was not attended to. Then the final one also was, I'm just talking to you about the only contending issues then. You know, then the third one was supposed to be what we call frontier exploration. And when you talk about frontier exploration, you're basically talking about basins where we have crude oil, you know, or fossil fuel. We all know that the Niger Delta is a prolific basin. Oil has been discovered there. So we already know how we will treat Niger Delta. Recently, we discover oil around Lagos axis, but the Lagos axis belongs to a basin we call Dahomey Basin. Of course, we have discovered hydrocarbon in the Anambra Basin. Recently, we discovered hydrocarbon around Benue Trough going into Gongola Basin. Then there are other virgin basins like the Sokoto Basin, Bida Basin, and Lake Chad Basin. So for such areas, you will just come up with the ways you will treat them. But immediately the new government came, they threw away that document, and the first thing they did was they broke down that PIB into 4. In fact, for me, I will use the word, they balkanized it into 4. Came up with Petroleum Industry Governance Bill, this, that bill, and that one kept dragging. Right. Honestly, but we are talking about a national document that you are going to use to have transaction on an international product that has to do with externalities. You don't treat such documents like that.
So it means that perhaps we do not understand how much of a game changer the bill could have been for us.
No, because a lot of people lost interest. You see, when we had the 223-page document, this is the way we will have handled it. You're talking about oil and gas industry, fossil fuel. You're talking about an international product, and you will be dealing with international oil companies and local oil companies. All we needed to have done then was to congregate these experts or technocrats or whatever name you will give them, bring oil and gas lawyers together, oil and gas engineers, oil and gas journalists, oil and gas economists, and oil and gas environmentalists. So what we will have done then was to bring all of them together, hand over that document to them. Because the reason why you needed to have them in one place is this. When you say reserve means a different thing to a lawyer.
Absolutely.
It means a different thing to an engineer, an environmentalist. When you say biodegradation, it means a different thing to the environmentalist, a lawyer, and an energy economist. And when you talk about production, so if you bring these experts together, they will agree on the definition of everything in one place. And when they are done, then all of them will sit now and face the legislators. So that if a senator says reserve is this, a lawyer should not contradict the engineer. The economist should not contradict. So when they all agree now, then they will now present it to the legislators, and the legislators can now play around.
Now, where does this leave us? With all of this that you have mentioned, where does this leave us moving forward?
Those things were never done. Because what was happening was, before you know, there will be a public sitting in Ibadan. The next day, you will have public sitting in Lagos. And when these things were happening, you were not having these technocrats in one place. That was why when you are talking about PIB today, an economist will be saying a different thing. The next time they hold a public hearing, the energy journalists will be asking different questions. So because of that, people basically lost interest. And because of that loss in interest, a lot of people decided to look for better investment havens. And the worst part was, there were countries, but I don't want to mention them, African countries, that were very happy that Nigeria came up with the initiative. But we all know that Nigeria is very good in thinking initially, coming up with initiatives, but at the end, we end up becoming the last. Just like, we had our premier university in like 1948. But as we speak today, we cannot refine. And everybody knows that refining is elementary chemistry. We have, how many universities do we need to have to be able to refine petroleum products? To produce petroleum products. So in the case of Nigeria, honestly, let us put national interest first. That is the key thing. If we put national interest, honestly, we will move away from so many things. How can you imagine that as we speak today, we cannot refine our crude oil? We have to rely on imports. I heard some people saying it's because we don't have capacity. How can you be talking about a country that has more than 100 universities that they don't have capacity? Sometimes you hear that the reason why we are consuming more than 50 million liters is because of smuggling. It's not correct. We are consuming so much today because a lot of people cannot go out due to this coronavirus. A lot of people operate at home. And you're talking about more than 200 million citizens depending on less than 7,000 megawatts of electricity. Definitely those people will look for other ways of generating energy. And the other way of looking for energy is to go to the filling station, buy petrol or diesel, run their generators. Because a place like Lagos, even due to traffic, we don't go out. So many people are at home, but when you are at home and I need to communicate with you virtually, discuss business, talk on all kinds of virtual media, what do I need to use? I must use energy, and that energy will come from petrol or diesel generator. So these things can be explained. So when you hear our own leaders saying we are consuming so much, we are importing so much because of smuggling, then you keep getting surprised.
So one final question, which is just a yes or no question, is the aspect of, do you see this bill being passed today?
I will not be disappointed if it is not passed. I think that's the best way to see it. Because, the interest is no longer there, like we said. I will not be disappointed, but I will be very happy if it is passed. It's better late than never. As
you earlier said. Thank you so much, energy consultant Balazaka, for your time.
Thank you.
Right, we'll take a short break. When we return, we'll have time for our second conversation. Stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. Now, reactions have continued to trail the rearrest of leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, Nnamdi Kanu. In light of this development, Igbo's social-cultural group, Ohaneze, has advised the federal government to handle the IPOB leader's case carefully in order to prevent violent revolt from his followers. The United Kingdom has also said it will seek clarification from the federal government on the circumstances and legality of Mr. Kanu's arrest. Human rights lawyer Justice Uhuegbu is in the studio to discuss this. Good morning. Thank you for joining us on TVC Breakfast.
Good morning.
Now, divergent reactions had trailed the rearrest of Nnamdi Kanu. And one of the major or the loudest voices from this reaction, I would not like to mention him, but the reaction we're getting is that the government must ensure that they respect his human rights. Now, for you, what would be, what kind of picture would that take if we are saying that government should respect Nnamdi Kanu's human rights with regards to this case? A lot of people are saying government should tread carefully, ensure that justice is done and seen to be done, and this case handled as it should be.
Well, the truth is that the matter is already in court, in as much as
the whole thing started like a child's play, the way the whole thing happened and all the rest. And you will agree with me that there have been a lot of controversies on the mode or how he was arrested, because formerly Nigerians were made to understand that he was arrested in London, extradited from London, but the British government has come out to deny that and all the rest. But the issue of where he was arrested and is still not clear up to now, because there are a lot of stories flying on the media and the federal government has not come out to say anything. I think that the best person to give a clue of what actually happened would be Nnamdi Kanu himself.
Absolutely.
Yes,
that's where he's arrested is not the issue right here.
That's the thing. No, because we are looking at legality and illegality of things, because we're talking about human rights.
Right.
Because once you're talking about arrest, there are certain procedures and processes that should be taken in order not to trample on the person's human rights.
Absolutely.
Yes. Like now that the issue is here and he's charged to court, I think the federal government was also careful, because immediately this thing happened, they had no other alternative than to take him to court so that he wouldn't raise so much issues, dust and all the rest. But like people had advised, like the social cultural group, the Ohanese and Igbo and all the rest, the federal government also had to tread with carefulness. Like I said yesterday in one of my interviews, we need to be careful at this stage. But everybody is calling to the fact that the government must, as a matter of urgency, make sure that he is given a fair trial and fair hearing. And secondly, for me, I will also advise that his matter should be given as a related hearing.
Why?
Yes, because it is a matter of peculiarity and urgency. You know, this is somebody or people that have been in the matter in detention for some time until he was. Remember, he was granted bail on health grounds.
Basis, yes.
Which is one of the special circumstances provided by law. So when you now begin to delay the matter and all the rest, some people have made reference to some other matters that are lingering in courts when the person is being incarcerated in prison and all that. So that is where the human rights comes in now. So that is why the federal government must be very, very careful. And like somebody said, and like the media said, there are other things you should do in order not to raise unnecessary dust.
Like what?
Yes, because like you see, so what Ohanese said, that he has followers and all the rest. You understand it?
And we've seen the agitations in that region, the south.
Yes.
Do you think that it could, fuel the agitations we have witnessed over time?
Well, one thing you should understand is that in Nigeria, just like politicians, they all have their followers. And once anything happens, your followers will definitely come out to talk and to do certain things. But there are certain things you don't need to continue doing. The politicians will tell you that they are giving, when they have issues within themselves, they will tell you they are trying to apply political solution to it. So they should also look for a solution to this.
What kind of solution can you suggest?
No. You see, let me, in the first place now, I am not in the domain of the federal government.
Absolutely.
I wouldn't know what is in their mind. But the most important thing now,
from the point of view of someone who is seeing things, you are feeling what the people are feeling from that region, and you can analyze issues.
Yes.
Now, that is why I'm saying perhaps we could make suggestions.
Like I have said one. And one of the suggestions is that I suggest that the court should give its trial accelerated hearing. Yeah. So that it will come and go immediately. Do you understand it? So because the more you delay matters, the more, how do I put it, influence and other things will begin to rise and begin to come in. You understand? So the best thing is it because we're in Nigeria, we talk about our legal system delaying cases and all the rest. If it's other countries, you saw what happened in the case of Ibori. When he went over there, how long did this case take? But here you see cases staying 5 years, 10 years, and still in court. For what? Is it supposed to be so? And when we say that justice delayed is justice denied. So that is the angle we're looking at it. So as it is simplicity now, we must be very, very careful. And again, you see, because of what happened and the way the whole team played, Nigerians are being skeptical the way the whole team played up, because I expect the government by now to have come out to issue a statement on exactly how certain things played or how he was arrested, because it is an issue. Because if the government can come out and say something happened this way, and the people you say that did this have denied it, what impression are you creating to the public? And again, we should also be mindful that this period, the searchlight is on Nigeria. The whole country, both Amnesty International and all the rest, the searchlight is on Nigeria. Absolutely,
they have been speaking, and the UK is seeking clarification from Nigeria, the federal government, and they are also looking to provide him consular assistance. Now, with this development now, do you think this could put a spin to the case?
No, I don't think so. But remember that UK has the right to do such thing, because remember he's a British citizen.
Yes.
You understand the thing? Ordinarily, and I think he was on transit from Britain or from UK before this thing happened. So ordinarily, their interests must be there. But you see, we are dealing with countries that value their citizens, not like Nigeria that we don't value ourselves. But that's the truth. But yeah, it's a fact. Do you know how many Nigerians that are being incarcerated?
But we have seen the government go all out to ensure that certain persons are repatriated.
Out of harm.
Goes out to ensure that issues are resolved.
Out of how
when
many? Out of millions, you get one or two, and some of those things, those ones are political.
But we can't rule out the fact that the Nigerian government has made effort. That's what I'm trying to say.
I don't want to go there. I don't want to go there because I think that would be a topic for another day. But I am telling you, as an insider, that is what I do. That is where I belong. So when we say government is doing this, government is doing that, my dear, let's tell ourselves the truth. Well, you are a journalist. You can take a trip or make calls. You discover how many Nigerians have been incarcerated in foreign lands. So let's leave that one. But what we are saying is that the UK government, I think they are being responsive because they feel he is their citizen. And that is the normal thing to do. But at this point in time, I think what we should be talking about now is the issue, or how would the government conduct the trial in order to expedite the trial. And remember that it was not even only the person that was being tried before now. And if you see what transpired in the court, or what the media have been saying, one of the allegations now is that he jumped bail.
Yes. That's what
yes.
Because, and he said he had to run because to save his life.
But of course we knew.
But does that mean that he should jump bail? Is that the way to go about this kind of thing?
When we're talking about jumping bail, we must be mindful of certain things.
Right.
This is somebody who was on bail, who provided a reliable surety. The court in its wisdom gave conditions for bail. He fulfilled the Constitution, bringing up a reliable surety who is a senator of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, a distinguished senator. Now, what played out? Remember before the operation, I think, is it Python dance or whatever they call it? This man has few days to appear in court before that infection. Yeah. So it's only a tree that will be told it will be cut off and it will remain. So what do you expect? So as far as I'm concerned, that was where the federal government got it wrong at that period. If actually the federal government is aware of that operation.
Is it possible the government
well, what do you want me to say? Because within that period and since that thing happened, the federal government has not come out to issue any statement on that. So that is the issue. And that was why, if you remember, we saw it in the media, the man took time to explain to the court, well, I have to take my leave or look for a way to escape. Is it not somebody that is alive that will come and face charges?
Absolutely.
Fine. You must be alive. And remember, the Constitution, the 1999 Constitution as amended, simpliciter provides that an accused person, no matter how grave the accusation could be, is presumed innocent until proven guilty. By what? A court of competent jurisdiction, not by the executive or by the police or by whoever that arrested you, but by a court of competent jurisdiction. That is telling you, that takes us back to the issue of separation of power. Every arm, you should allow them to do their own job. You cannot be a judge in your own court.
Right.
That is the truth. So when you begin to look at some of this, you see, the law in its wisdom, Montesquieu provided for the a principle of separation of power. And in the minds of Montesquieu, as at the time this principle was made, there were certain things they were initiating that if you do not do such things, there will be tyranny. Like I said on this platform last time, knowing the fact that power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely, some of these guiding principles has to come in order to guide certain things.
So, quickly, you mentioned something earlier which has to do with he should be given fair hearing, fair trial, and all of it. From the precedents that we have seen with regards to this case, are you confident that he will get that?
Well, yes, I am now because of why. That's why I say, because it's no longer an issue of maybe a Nigerian affair. You can now see that the British government has waded in. So the whole country, the searchlight is on Nigeria to know how this thing is going to play out. So we must be very, very careful and trained carefully with this. And again, it will also be a case study for our judiciary. Yes.
How so?
Yes. Because everybody is watching. Experts are watching. We are all watching. It will also be a case study for our judiciary. And remember that in the principle of law, we're not in court actually, but in the principle of court.
No, we need to hear
in the
it.
principle of court, you see, that's one thing you must understand. As a prosecution, you must prove your case beyond reasonable doubt. And you don't just prove your case by word of mouth.
Evidence.
There must be facts. Evidence. Credible what? Evidence.
So a lot of you are waiting to see the credible evidence government will put before the courts concerning this case.
Well, remember that it's vice versa. Because when somebody is charged to courts, there is a two-way traffic thing. Because when the prosecution must have presented or tabled their own evidence, you have to put up a defense by also putting up your own evidence in order to water down the other one. So vis-a-vis the two legal battle. In fact, we're going to see a very legal battle here. But that's what we are saying. Most lawyers like us are only consigned to the fact that, you see, when we talk about fair trial and fair hearing, we are mainly trying to let people know that the issue of intimidation and all the rest should not come in.
Right.
Because once there is any form of intimidation, either to the defense counsel, to the person or certain things, you will now see that the trial is no longer fair. And that is where many people will raise concern. And I believe that is where the international community is also watching to see what to play. I thank God for the media today. At least it's going to be a live thing. Once the case is going on, I think the media will carry it openly.
All right, let's leave the conversation here now. Human rights lawyer Justice Uwegbo, thank you so much for your time on the program.
Thank you.
All right, we'll take a break now. When we return, it will be time to review the papers. Stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. It is time now to know what's on the front pages of Nigerian newspapers, and broadcast journalist Ifeanyi Egbule, as well as Dari Odufooko, a journalist as well, joins me in the studio to look at the papers this morning. Gentlemen of the press, good morning.
Good morning.
Right, let's head straight to the papers, and I begin with the Business Day. China grew economy on land reform. Nigeria can. You find details of that story on the pages of the Business Day. To the national economy now, federal government accepts World Bank's advice, slashes electricity subsidy by 40%. Right, details of that story on the pages of the national economy. To the Daily Trust, traders, experts worry as Naira free fall continues. Currency hovers around 500 Naira to $1. What CBN should do to ease situation. Details of the story on the pages of the Daily Trust. To the Blueprint now. Ahead PIB passage today. Host communities raise concern, insist on 10% equity. You find details of the story on the pages of the Blueprint. To the Guardian now. 6 months after Nigeria yet to domesticate, implement AfCFTA. Free trade will commence when crucial criteria are completed, says Customs. To the Leadership newspaper now, how bandits starve, torture Islamia pupils daily. How bandits starve, torture Islamia pupils daily. Find details of that story on the pages of the Leadership newspaper. To the Nigerian News Direct now, insecurity, illegal possession, importation of firearms to attract 3-year jail term. Illegal possession, importation of firearms to attract 3-year jail term. To the First newspaper now, how Kinsmen Close Associates sold out Nnamdi Kanu Inter-Society Group. You find details of the story on the First newspaper. To the Punch newspaper now, we are seeking explanation from federal government on Kanu's arrest, says Britain. UK ready to provide consular assistance to Kanu, the man's due process. Biafran agitators, lawyers, rights, ESS, allege IPOB leader was kidnapped. Kenyan authorities handed over Nnamdi Kanu to Nigeria, alleges IPOB. Details of that story on the pages of the Punch newspaper. To the Nigerian Tribune now, Kanu, UK IPOB brother, provide more insight into his arrest trial. To the Vanguard newspaper, our position on Nnamdi Kanu, British government. Family protest extradition, alleges abduction from Kenya, says it violates international law. A stand on Nnamdi Kanu by British government. No going back on Biafra struggle, IPOB. He must not die in custody, Fani Kaide wants. Federal government competent in handling security matters, Arewa Consultative Forum. To the Nation newspaper now, security probes Kanu to uncover IPOB financiers. Kanu's core logs, social media accounts being screened. UK may initiate talks with government, Igbo leaders, others call for fair hearing. He may be charged with inciting killings. All right. To the Daily Sun now, UK engages federal government over Kanu's arrest, demands due process in trial, promises IPOB leader consular services. He was arrested in Kenya, says family. Coalition of Igbo British lawyers condemns Kenya's role. All right, let's quickly, first of all, look at the story, the new development with regards to Nnamdi Kanu's case, where we're seeing the British government seeking to provide, or wanted to provide, Kanu consular assistance, and also demanding information from the government with regards to his arrest. And the question is, do we think that that could put a spin on the case, Ife?
It depends on what angle you're looking at it. Now, you have two countries talking about a gentleman who I believe he probably has a British passport,
yes,
as it is. Now, this has happened. There were so many things that were being said about him on social media. Oh, he was arrested with his Nigerian passport. Well, the idea now is that he's here in Nigeria and he's going to answer to a lot of atrocities, of course, that may have been committed. They're saying he's the one that actually engineered some of this. Now you're asking, is there going to be a spin on the matter with the UK now saying, look, we're going to provide consular services as it is? I'm just saying that this is unfolding. So much is going to happen as it is. Tempers will be flayed, you know, with this idea of Kanu being in custody now. What I would say is that people need to relax from the kind of things that they're saying all over social media. And when you look at it again, some of these things may also cause some kind of trouble here and there with those things that are coming out. But we're waiting to see what it is when we talk about the conversation that Britain is going to have with Nigeria. What tilt is it going to take? Are you going to say, just let the man go? It's practically impossible for anyone to do that.
Right.
There are issues that the government will want to have answers to, questions they want to have answers to. And I'm sure he's going to have his day in court. So we sit and watch how that unfolds.
Dari.
Well, the bottom line now is Nnamdi Kanu is in custody. The important thing now is that Nnamdi Kanu should have his day in court.
You sure will.
The intervention or interference, maybe by Britain, to me, is still not out of place.
Okay.
It is within reasonable jurisdiction. What they have simply said is, we'll provide consular assistance. He is entitled to it.
Okay.
Don't forget, he is also a British citizen. But the offenses committed, or alleged to have been committed, were committed here, on Nigerian soil. He's a Nigerian citizen. He holds our passport. He was once arrested. He was facing trial. He submitted himself to the process of even having some prominent person stand surety for him.
Yeah.
He put this gentleman at risk by jumping bail. So, apart from the case he may have with the federal government, there is also the beauty of helping this gentleman who stood surety for him to escape the long arm of the law. I am happy for them that now Nnamdi Kanu, either willingly or unwillingly, is back to face his own trial. Exonerate them, because, for example, Abaribe has been labeled seriously over this matter. Yeah. I didn't like it all along. Kanu is his brother. Take it as we are Africans. You are my sister, you are my brother, I find you in... And every person that is accused is innocent until proven guilty. So at the point he was standing surety for him, he was standing surety for an innocent man who was having his day in court. But Kanu, by his own action, almost put Abaribe in trouble. But now he's back. Let him, with or without Britain, whether he was abducted or kidnapped, whether he returned willingly, whether he was arrested normally.
These are the issues that has to do with human rights that have to be, that government have to give details
all
about.
Those issues too should be trashed out in court. If a man is abducted and he's still alive, we thank God. Let him go to court and prove that, oh, I was abducted. You know what we call trial before trial? All those ones, the issue of jurisdiction, the issue of legality, the issue of, lawyers, technicalities, they would first spend time explaining. Immediately they want to start this trial now. A lawyer will go and get another saying, until the issue of his, how he was arrested is resolved, they cannot. Let's have our, it's time, let's have this distraction from the many issues bothering us. Kanu is here, he's in custody. I want to appeal to those supporting him and even those opposing him to let go of the matter. Some of the things they will say will add more to his problem. If somebody is saying, with the arrest of Kanu now, you will see more bombing in the southeast, are you helping him? Or somebody is saying, now that we have Kanu in custody, you will see that the bombings and the killings will stop. Are you helping him? Let's watch what we say. Let this man, I won't call him a gentleman, have his day in court. Let the law, like I will support one thing Britain is saying, let the process be free, fair, credible,
and transparent.
We should not see him as a prisoner of war. No. That will not help anybody. He is a Nigerian citizen, accused of offenses against the state, and he has pleaded not guilty. Let the process show that we don't hate him. We may hate what he is alleged to have done, but we don't hate him as a person. So law is based on provisions of our books. It should not be tilted for or against in this process. Let Kanu have his days, because it won't be days in court. Let him explain things we may not know, and let him exonerate himself, if possible, from the charges preferred against him.
All right. Let's move to another issue right now that is of concern to a lot of persons, talking about some of our abducted students. So if you look at the Leadership newspaper this morning, it has been said how bandits starve, torture Islamia pupils daily. And in one of the papers, again, there were talks about despite 20 million naira ransom being paid, the students have not been released, and it's generating concern. What exactly is going on? You hear some person saying, you know, pay the ransom, others saying don't pay ransom, others saying negotiate with these people, yet we still have our children in custody despite ransom being paid, and you still are starving these pupils despite the whole conversation that is being had. Where does this leave us, Ife?
I'm looking at it, as long as we continue to negotiate, as long as we continue to talk to bandits as it is, this is what you'll continue to have, because you're saying, look, some parents had to raise 180 million just so their kids can come out. Some had been killed. They paid that money. They found that they could get money. People are being treated with kid gloves. It's just for the government to go all out and show them that it's no longer business as usual. We're looking at this now, how they starve, torture Islamia pupils daily. Now, they're the ones who would release this thing. No one knows exactly what's happening right there in the enclave. True. You have no idea. But they're the ones who would release this to the public to say this is exactly what it is that's going on. And you know how it is that we are with children, our children here. When you hear that something is going wrong with your child, you're so apprehensive. You want to do everything that you can to see that you bring those children out. But Veronica, I would say to you, this is quite sad that I'm admitting right here on national TV. I feel so overwhelmed. It's becoming like it's a daily thing. It's becoming like a way of life for us. When it happens, you're now asking, okay, so how many children we're taking? What's it going to be? Before you know it, they are forgotten. Remember the Chibok girls.
Adjusting to the whole.
That's it. It becomes a way of life. And I'm sure they're in their own, you know, area where it is that they are looking at it and thinking, where is the next school that we're going to? Where are we going to pick the next set of children? So what are we talking about? They're taking the government for granted. They're shoving it in their face to say, look, we're doing this, we're picking your children, and you're not doing anything. So if you ask me, the buck stops on the table of government. And it's not just about one man. Because we keep talking, everyone's mentioning, is Buhari, he's not doing well. Buhari is just one man who was picked from amongst all of us. So it's a collective thing. How are we going to do it? Everyone needs to, you know, contribute to what it is that we're talking about. Then again, you look at it. Are we getting to that stage where they're saying no schools? You know,
because we've seen some states close some
we
of
have
their
reached
schools.
that level. We have reached that stage where you now want to shut down the whole schools. Are we thinking about homeschooling our children? How do you homeschool for people who are not even able to sleep in their homes. Some people have been sacked from their homes as we speak. Now we're in the south. You're thinking it's not going to get here, but gradually it is inching closer to us. And before you know it, it's something that everyone will test, because it can be anybody's child.
Absolutely.
It can be
absolutely. In fact,
child.
Some days ago, we saw a report saying that some schools in the Federal Capital Territory have been placed on red alert. Some have been closed down. And like she mentioned, handling this issue with kids' gloves. Is that what the situation is at this point?
You see, I'll keep saying this. We come here, we talk, we check your social handles. A lot of people say different kind of things, but some of us are not deterred.
Of course.
I'll say this again. What is happening concerning abduction and kidnapping is an extension of the Boko Haram war going on in the northeast. It is an extension. I don't know why it's difficult for people to see this. Why the sudden target at schools? It's for two reasons. We are telling you Boko Haram, book is haram. Education is a sin. We will not allow it. That was the beginning of the whole thing.
Yes.
And we will work towards ensuring that no child goes to school. They are gradually achieving it in that region. Not only in Northeast, even in the Northwest and North Central.
Yes.
Niger. Look at Niger. Schools are closing down. It's a daily thing. Then look at Kaduna, look at Katsina, look at Zamfara, KB, Yobe. So that axis is almost completed. That is one. Two, there is need for funds to continue the war, that senseless war. How do you think they'll get funds to buy guns, feed those kid soldiers that they have there? These are the kind of, they get this money from kidnapping and abduction now. They are virtually using the ISWAP style. They are using the jihadi style in Iraq, in Libya, in Mali. These were things we were hearing of being done in those countries. It's here with us now. Kidnap some kids or some people, get ransom, fund the fighters. Come back for more. They now have the abducting arm of their army.
And techniques. The
ransom arm. Those who, you realize that those who collect the ransom are not those who abduct. They have units to keep the war going. And we, as a people, we, as a government, have refused to tie these things together and call it what it is. It is only when you tie it together and you call it the name it is that you can know what glove. I'm
throwing back the question at you because you asked why are we not seeing it as such, and I'm wondering why.
We are not seeing it because it has become our way as a people to label things for convenience. Don't let's call them terrorists so that we don't gun them down. Like, are you not hearing people waging war in the media that don't call them terrorists? They are aggrieved people. Aggrieved.
Don't call
you
them
take children, you kill two of them. In our very eyes, you send their bodies to us to show us how serious you are, and you are aggrieved. You are aggrieved. And somebody wants me to call such a person an aggrieved Nigerian, not a terrorist. Somebody is even saying you should stop calling them bandits. For how long?
Stop calling them criminals.
Criminals. For how long are we going to pretend? If he said they are being treated with kids' glove, and I am saying it is only when you call them what they are that you know which glove to use in handling them. If you keep calling a live wire rubber, you will handle it with a polythene glove. You will think it is safe. But when you know this is live wire,
you know how to handle it.
Naked wire, you will get the right kind of gloves to handle it. So it is not just about this issue of negotiating with criminals. I don't blame the government for it, and I'll tell you why.
Why?
Sometimes government will say we will not. El-Rufai came out and said I will not pay a dime. You know how well he has been abused. Somebody said if it is your son, I know you will pay. He came out to say kidnap my son, I will still not pay. People have been abusing him since then. There was a time Buhari said we will not give money to criminals.
Perhaps it's a reaction to what a statement he made years ago.
Years ago. Now, the president said we will not patronize criminals with fund. And then shortly after, there was kidnapping in Katsina, his home state. And people are saying, just bring our boys. If you either you go and pay whatever they ask for. This is, and if the government go behind the scene to pay, are we actually going to blame them? The people ask for it. All of us must know that criminals will always be criminals. Now, 20 million was paid, the children were not released. 180 million was paid, the children were not. You know why? They suddenly realized that, oh, there is more where this is coming from. Let's use this ones to still get, and
that's why I'm saying that it's important for government to change strategy. That's the truth.
Sources are even saying many of the children in custody are dead, and we are still paying.
So what are we talking about? We're still saying the same thing. So change your strategy.
Let me now say this:
information gathering. What happened to information gathering?
Nnamdi Kanu was not arrested in Nigeria. I can imagine the effort that went into getting him. Kudos to all those who did that.
Yes,
because
that's what a lot of persons are saying.
People should answer to their offenses.
Right.
If he has questions to answer, he should provide answer. I'm not against his arrest. I am for it. I am pressing the intelligence unit of forces for a job well done. But I want to say that same effort should be put into tracking down these local criminals too. Let's get them in. Let's bring, there are people at the top of all these groups. You bring in these things, you scatter the herd. Bring in the shepherd and the herd, you scatter. Get intelligence enough, gather enough intelligence, go for the right arrowheads, and let's have some peace. Let's have some peace.
And now that he's talked about arrowheads, you find out, remember there were times that it had been said that you look inside government also, there are people who will be culpable, if you understand what I'm talking about.
Government had once said that they were going to, release
bring
names.
In those arrowheads, they will mention names.
So what's stopping you from releasing those names? We have this thing about culture and tradition. When things happen, it is the poor people that you have their names right there in the open. But when it involves people who are of influence, very influential people, you find that their names are not there. You're saying to us
maybe there are no evidences yet.
That you don't want to mention their names. Sorry, we don't.
Maybe there are no evidences yet.
We can't have that conversation right here.
No, maybe
this is Nigeria where
maybe there are no evidence. You cannot just go mentioning people's names.
Yes, we understand that.
Let them get the perpetrators who will say, "Look, you are our sponsor."
That's right.
Yeah, until that is done,
it can happen.
No, you can't mention people's
just the
names.
way that you have mentioned, they went out of their way, found a way. They were not making noise until it just came out. People couldn't believe
that he was in Nigeria since Sunday.
That is it. People couldn't
and I saw the picture.
You're gloating.
No, I'm not gloating. I am happy that our intelligence can actually work. You can't take that away from me.
Absolutely.
I'm a proud Nigerian that we were able to do this.
Everyone is proud. With regards to
all we want in Nigeria is peace. The government needs to find a way to do that so that our children
can about gloating over somebody's arrest.
Okay, let's leave it now. Daddy, let's leave it now. Thank you for your contribution, Daddy Odufowoka and if you're in Igbo. Thank you. You can continue the argument after now. I know. We'll take this break. When we return, it will be time for the news update. Stay with us. Right, thank you for staying with us. Let's bring you the news update at this time. The Senate will today debate the report of its Joint Committee on Petroleum on the Petroleum Industry Bill. The Joint Committees on Petroleum consist of the upstream sector and the downstream sector and the gas sector, and they had been meeting with relevant stakeholders in the sector to sort out gray areas of the bill. The Group Managing Director of the Nigeria National Petroleum Corporation, Mili Kyari, will also brief the Senate on the bill at a closed-door session, which will last for an hour. The long-awaited Petroleum Industry Bill seeks the reform of Nigeria's petroleum industry and may be passed by the Senate today. The leadership of the People's Democratic Party on Wednesday protested at the National Assembly against the nomination of Loretta Onoche as a National Commissioner of the Independent National Electoral Commission. The leaders demanded the immediate reversal of President Muhammadu Buhari's nomination, led by its national chairman, Uche Secondus. The PDP described the appointment as a travesty on democracy. Mr. Secondus said Mrs. Onoche, being a card-carrying member of the All Progressives Congress, cannot be appointed into a position that requires a high level of neutrality. He urged the National Assembly leadership to impress on the president to immediately withdraw her nomination. Some PDP lawmakers, including the Senate Minority Leader, Senator Naya Baribe, were among those who joined in the protest. The party also vows that 4 of its lawmakers that recently decamped to the All Progressives Congress will be made to lose their seats in the Senate.
For our country.
Yes.
And therefore, we have come for this peaceful protest that the National Assembly should reject her.
Yes.
It is important at this point that the country must know that in a crisis situation like this, on insecurity and economy, what we need from Mr. President is to conduct free and fair elections.
Yes,
this woman is APC. This woman has joined APC. She is a card-carrying member of APC. And from Anocha local government, she will pollute the atmosphere at INEC. And she will rig election.
With all my colleagues from the PDP in the Senate, and the minority leader in the House has also come with our colleagues in the House of Representatives. This letter will be presented immediately, right now, to the Senate President, Chairman Senator Gaya, the Chairman of INEC, and I can reassure you that justice will be done.
There is no internal party wrangling in any chapter of our party. Because the essence of politics is contestation for power. There could be instances of contestation in our respective chapters, but to declare a situation of crisis is totally wrong. And even as we speak, our National Working Committee is one. Wherever you go to in our state chapters, we have one united, indivisible executive committees.
But in its reaction, the APC says its track record in implementing projects and programs that meet the needs of Nigerians is what has attracted more members and supporters from all over the country into the party. The party added that strong internal democracy, transparency and fairness in the conduct of its affairs, which are demonstrably lacking in the PDP, are additional reasons that make the APC a better option for Nigerians, including serving state governors, national and state assembly members who are abandoning the PDP and joining the APC. The statement added, quote, "We want to remind Nigerians that while many APC members were victims of rigging when the PDP was in power, the APC has no record of rigging elections. The Muhammadu Buhari-led administration has introduced electoral reforms aimed at ensuring that all loopholes that open the electoral process to possible abuse in future elections are sealed and eliminated," end quote. Well, that is a wrap on the news updates. We'll take a break. When we return, it will be time to talk business. David Alabi will be with you to bring you updates. Stay with us.
Welcome to Thursday Business News Report. We now start off with our feature on the show today, looking at liquefied petroleum gas penetration in Nigeria and also exploring strategies to bring down the price of cooking gas across the country. Well, as part of moves to achieve this, there have been calls to the government to put in place a policy that would encourage full domestication of the liquefied petroleum gas. Marketers are also saying that every local producer of gas should also be mandated to domicile all molecules produced in the country, as against the situation of being a major exporter of gas produced as well as a major importer of gas. Now, the domestic availability has also been skewed majorly to about 65% import dependence, while we have only about 35% attributed to local supply. Well, joining me now live in our Lagos studio to discuss the major challenge with LPG utilization, inconsistent availability, and also the gas price template, I have with me Sunday Ogoride, the Vice President, Western Zone, Nigerian Association of Liquefied Petroleum Gas Marketers Association. Good to have you on the breakfast show this morning.
Good morning, Nigeria.
And I also have with me on my left-hand side, Basi Essien as well, the Executive Secretary of the Association. Good to see you today as well. Let's start off with you now, Mr. Ogoride, looking at the fact that the pricing of gas is really the front burner across board. We have different pricing templates across different states, and the issue is just baffling, looking at the fact that we have a whole lot of gas reserves and we shouldn't even be talking about the high cost of gas, really.
Yeah, it's of concern to everyone, but there are some basic issues that we need to understand. The first is that a big chunk of the gas that we use here is imported. And because of the high exchange rate, it has affected the price at which the end user gets his gas. If we were to have full domestication of gas, all the charges that are associated with freight, with getting foreign exchange will be saved. And that would definitely bring the price of gas downwards. Secondly, the issue presently is that demand and supply affects the price of goods, because sometimes the products are not readily available. Whatever is available, those who have it want to maximize profit on it, and they increase price at will. Except we have a situation where we can have regular and uninterrupted supply. That will make competition to be very, very key, and price will fall naturally.
And talking about price falling in natural level, let's talk about how we stabilize or sanitize the market, Mr. Essien.
We see the issue here is we are actually looking at a situation that the market should be awash with the product. Because if we have, right now our consumption is about 1.2 million metric tons, and the LNG supply is about 450,000 metric tons. The differential comes from importation. So if we have a situation that if all the local producers of gas are being mandated by the government to domicile every molecule they produce in the domestic market, we'll have a system where the system will be awash with the product, and definitely because of price different competition, definitely prices will come down, and we'll have a sustainability of the supply.
So Ogoride, also looking at the fact that government is also trying to intensify its effort towards the transition, or looking at the move away from other cooking energy sources to looking at liquefied petroleum gas. The benefits really are there, but we still have a situation of a perception of safety and a whole lot of information that has to be clarified really on the part of the consumers.
The truth is that every business has what we can call safety precautions that are associated with it. Somebody flying an airplane has some guidelines to follow. Anybody using gas also must know that there are guidelines to follow, either in the siting of the plants, even in the usage at home, except people are properly educated. The administration is doing a lot in this regard. We do a lot of education to sensitize people and make them know how to correctly use gas. Again, government needs to step in, because you can see now there are categories of plants. Those that are licensed by government to operate, all those ones go through the rigors of ensuring that every every plan of government to ensure safety is adhered to very strictly. But there are those who operate what we call illegal plants.
I like the fact, if I may button here, I like the fact that you made mention of the siting of these plants. Now, at the end of the day, irrespective of where these licenses come from, there is an oversight function which ought to checkmate the slightest loophole. So it's inexcusable to have plants that are not properly licensed operate, don't you think? To limit the casualties we have on ground, because we've had situations of casualties that are irredeemable, so to speak.
I agree with you that licenses, when they, plants when they are licensed, they will be able to operate safely. But the truth today is that there are so many plants that do not have government approval to operate, and they are operating.
What fuels this?
I think it is because people feel that is the in thing now. People are running away from kerosene. Gas is the in thing. Everybody wants to get involved without going through the necessary prerequisites, learning the trade, knowing the safety precautions to put in, and apparently government does not have the maybe enough manpower to be able to police, because you see a lot of illegal plants that are not licensed. They just wake up one day and they start doing the business, and this is very, very dangerous.
Mr. Ogoride, do you understand the gravity of what we are speaking right now, and the fact that there is no excuse citing that government cannot do its oversight function is an excuse that ought not to be bought into?
Okay, I agree, but government will still work within the limits of the resources.
How
that
do we now
have.
intensify oversight functions?
That is why my association is liaising with government agencies. We are doing a very good job with Lagos State government. For instance, we have committees that we work together. We look at issues. We preempt accidents by taking by looking at the whole business holistically, suggesting ways and measures by which all these potential accidents can be avoided. And if every government will do that, and if they also develop the manpower that will be able to checkmate, especially those ones that are not licensed, those ones who just go into the business for the purpose of making money alone without considering the safety of life and property, I think by that time they will be able to clamp down on such illegal facilities, and only those that are licensed, those who know, those who have learned the ropes, those who have the approval to operate will be able to operate, and the level of accidents will reduce drastically.
Do you think we can do anything more in terms of punitive measures?
Yes, we can, if government first and foremost will ensure that they keep to the rules. For instance, a plant that does not have a DPR license is not supposed to operate. If they see anyone that operates illegally, if they make very strong punitive measures against such, maybe others will learn from it, and safety will be assured in the industry.
Mr. Basiasin, let me bring you in here now. The government has already declared 2020 to 2030 the decade of gas. That's a 10-year plan, and then we're already in year 2 already. Do you think we are intensifying as much effort, and then how do you see the association also deepening the engagement we have with government to ensure that we have increased consumption of gas, but the price still beats down to the barest minimum to encourage usage?
We're actually happy that the government, apart from making the 2020 the year of gas, has gone ahead to declare 2020 to 2030 decade of gas, and every effort is now focused on using gas to drive the economy. There are some marginal fields that are coming up and are in the process of producing gas. The MPDC in Ologbotu, the same thing. So we believe that when all these ones put together, they'll be able to meet, when they are able to meet our local consumption and bridge sustainability of gas. Once the availability is sustained, we know that there will be competition amongst the players, and definitely this will dovetail into a price stabilization.
Do you also side with the sentiment Mr. Basiasin just shared right now, looking at the fact that you allow market forces to rule and then you look at price stabilization, but at the end of the day, we still have the same old attempt to infrastructure? We've seen what happens with oil. Do you think the same tendencies would also limit the sort of success rate we would have with our gas reserves and then deepening gas penetration in the country?
I think I agree with him to a large extent that if all the gas that is produced locally can be, especially from marginal fields, can be added to whatever LNG supplies, then gas will be in abundant supply. And once gas is in abundant supply, it means nobody will be able to hike his own price, because the moment you do that, people will run away from you and get it from a cheaper source. So that will stabilize price and it will make it readily available. However, the infrastructural deficiency must must urgently be addressed. For instance, if like an LNG will want to bring gas, there are no baby vessels to bring them as regularly as they should, and that creates a gap. That gap leads to small shortages which have to be augmented with importation. Before this happens, then the price goes up. So if there is continuous supply, continuous flow of gas into the market, then prices will stabilize, because nobody will panic that I may run out of stock, and whatever you have, you want to sell it as quickly as possible, since supply is not an issue.
What forecast do you also see in terms of transportation of gas, really? We're wrapping up our conversation at this point in time. Wrapping up your thoughts in about 30 seconds.
The what?
What new forecast do you see in terms of how we transport gas and then getting this commodity to the different sites of usage?
You see, because the usage level is increasing drastically, within the next few years, I can see us doing double what we are doing presently, which means we need infrastructures in transportation to be able to cope with that. And we need to plan ahead to be able to do this. Not only just getting trucks, but getting those that meet the standard. Except we get those that meet the standard, we might be increasing in terms of usage, but we'll be causing a lot of havoc through accidents. And that is something we should work against. That is something we should guide against.
Well, we'll continue to look out for the conversation that the Nigerian Association of Liquefied Petroleum Gas Marketers will be bringing to the table. Really, it's a new dawn as we look at also increased penetration of gas. We would have to get things right. Excuses are not enough. Thank you very much for your time on the breakfast show this morning, Mr. Sunday Oguride. It's been a pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you very much for your time on the show.
Thank you, Dave.
Well, this is where we wrap up from the business desk this morning. Many thanks for watching.
Thank you for staying with us. Now, the news of Usifo Ataga's death a few weeks ago left many people in shock, especially after the alleged suspect behind this murder, 21-year-old Chidinma Ojukwu, was arrested by the police. Many questions are still begging for answers. But at the heart of all of this is the burden of parenting millennials and the increasing concern over the consumption of illicit drugs, especially by young adults. Social commentator Darlington Umoru is in the studio to discuss this. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Veronica.
All right. Now, the issue that has sprung up as a result of this case, a lot of people are concerned about parenting, and they're saying we need to start rethinking parenting, especially when it comes to the millennials. Another issue is the abuse of drugs, which the 21-year-old suspect confessed to using, that they both used, she and her victim used. And that is where I'd like for us to begin, because these days you see visuals of people on social media, young children, young adults as we call them, abusing drugs, alcohol. In fact, there was a video of a guy who was said to have abused drugs, fell off a story, climbed a story building and said he was going to jump. And then when he did, he died. He fell and died. And that is also generating concerns. Recently, the president talked about the fact that, you know, the abuse of drugs is much more dangerous than even the issues surrounding banditry and all of it that we have seen. Talk to us from that point of view, how concerning these developments are for you.
Well, let's start with the issue of parenting. The effect of what we're having today as a result of the offshoot of societal decadence.
Okay.
A lot of problems today, many broken homes.
Is that an excuse?
Parenting of a child takes two, ordinarily,
yes,
to bring up properly. If you take the statistics of children who are from broken homes, you will find out that a lot of them are those who had lost it. That initial control and teaching, you know, that direction of what they are meant to be, what the society expects from them. Again, today the society has failed many, particularly the youths. If you look at the case of Chidinma, for instance, Chidinma is a product of a broken home.
Yes.
The father also died about 2 years ago, 2019, from what we gathered, and today she's living with what looks like an uncle or a guardian.
Whom she adopted as a father.
Whom she had adopted as a father, but that does not make him her biological father.
Absolutely.
The kind of parenting she will get from that man it's not exactly the same thing she would have gotten from her biological father, whether you like it or not.
Definitely.
Now, Chidinma did say that for those times, particularly when she went out for that outing, she told the man Melly that she was going for a job where she was to work as an usher. Now take that into heart and consideration. You see that the man would not have his eyes so much on Chidinma's activities. Apparently that was why he tried to resist the police arrest when the police came, because he was still presuming that Chidinma
couldn't have done it.
Yes, was innocent. Now Chidinma allegedly committed that crime and then got home. Apparently she wouldn't be the same Chidinma that left home the day she left home. For somebody who was involved in whether a fight or whatever it was, and then the other party died, and then she came home with the broken knives and then the blood-stained clothes and kept them, one in the dustbin and the other one somewhere. Her state of mind wouldn't be the same. Absolutely. So if you're a parent, you would have been able to see that she was bothered somehow and then be able to ask certain questions, but all of that weren't there. So it meant that if she were to be with her mother and father, for instance, I'm sure the scenario would have been a bit different, whether you like it or not. Now, the issue of drugs. Why do people need to take drugs? It's simple. Like I taught some security agents in one of the national programs some time ago. Drugs are taken for just one singular purpose, to get high. To get high. And then when you are high on drugs, you'll be able to do those things ordinarily you wouldn't be able to do when you're normal, when you're in your normal position. Now, Chidinma at 21 apparently didn't start taking drugs at 21. Now, if she's a 300 level student at Unilag, it meant she did say that she was taught how to, she was brought into the use of drugs by senior students of the same school. So, well, if she was brought into all of that, it meant that she belonged to a clique. She joined a clique of drug users in the school, older, who eventually lured her into taking drugs. Now, she does not only take drugs, she drinks and she also smokes. Well, if she has all of this, apparently you begin to wonder that at what point did this decadence enter her? At what point has all of this been able to influence her? Who and who does she relate with? Now, of course, you will know that drugs dealing brings the drug dealers make the highest money in any other business. A senator in America did say that the drug trade between America and Mexico at the time, what Mexico makes in a year was higher than the entire American budget. What does that tell you? They were not talking about places like Cuba. They were not talking about some other places. Recently, now, drugs, the use of drugs has advanced beyond the direct usage. Now, a doctor was arrested somewhere in Auchi, Edo State, recently, who was using cookies.
Yes.
To make drugs and sell.
Yes.
And then ordinarily, you would just think that those things were just ordinary cookies you just buy. But those who buy them, her customers know what they are. Beyond that, there are some in some states that are mixed with water. Ordinarily, you think you're buying bottled water, but it's not. Now, the use of tramadol, cocaine, and all of that, at a point in time in this country, nobody knew what they were. Do you know, Veronica, that today some youth go to sock away and sniff it, the smell, and then they get high.
Yes.
Do you know gum, Evostic,
yes,
can make some of these people get high? And a lot of them, but ordinarily on a show like this, I shouldn't be mentioning them, so that those who are looking at will not even want to go to check out, try out some of those things. But the point today is how much have we been able to checkmate the movement of drugs, the sale of drugs to consumers.
That is where we should begin addressing this
in the world. Now, and so the older ones, or well, the people who introduce the younger ones into some of these drugs, why do they do so? Cigarettes, drinks, when they are not allowed to be advertised, and when you advertise them, you would say that the ages, there are age limitations. Now, Chidima claims to have been high on drugs, but now she has been involved in, well, she's not guilty yet until the courts says she's guilty. But if you look at the statement she made, the question you want to ask is Chidima a victim of a setup? Could Chidima alone would Chidima alone been able to do what she did?
Perhaps that's why there are investigations going on.
From the evidences found on the body of Usifo. Now, Chidima claimed that Usifo was also high on drugs. But we have seen the friends and family of Chidima came out with a statement. And they said they were merely responding to what the police had issued. And what Chidima had said.
I wouldn't want us to go into the nitty-gritty of the case.
No, we are looking at the drugs, the drug usage now. She admitted that she used drugs. But she also claimed, like what you also said, that Usifo also used drugs. But from what the friends and family had come up with, they said for the Usifo they know, Michael does not use drugs. Now, something is paramount here. The primary suspect has admitted that she used drugs. Now, whether Usifo actually used drugs or not, it is the test now that will prove whether he was also in drugs. But the rate at which our youths are indulging in drugs today is becoming alarming. Now, for criminals, they need drugs. It's not just firearms now. For most of these criminals who get themselves involved in some of these activities, they need drugs. Okay? Whether the armed robbers, whether the kidnappers, whether the terrorists,
whoever they may be.
But the most alarming part is the involvement of female in the use of drugs today. Is becoming so alarming. The population of female, the statistics.
What do you think could be at the heart of this, especially in the involvement of females in it? Is it something kind of a peer pressure? What really is driving, this consistency?
You have answered the question and you are still asking, and you are still asking me again.
Is that part of it? Peer pressure?
It's peer pressure and nothing more. Define it and break it down. I told you about what Chidima herself said.
That her seniors.
How do you define that? Peer pressure.
But she could make a decision. She could have made a decision.
You said pressure.
Under pressure, you can still make a decision.
You can still make it, but as a youth, how much decision would you be able to make when the pressure is much on you? Particularly when you find yourself in a higher institution or any institution or a gathering where you want to belong. It could be done at parties. It is done in schools. Growing up for me, like you rightly said, I had a group of friends. I attended a boys' school. I had a group of friends who were on drugs, who were using drugs, talking about cannabis here now. I had followed them to certain places because we were very close friends. But up until this moment, I never got involved. Even the parents of those boys would always say we were one, that we were doing the same thing. But it took their children to explain to them that I was a Jew man. That was what they were calling me. But the pressure sometimes will be so high that because you want to belong, you wouldn't be able. That is why as a parent, Veronica, you must watch out for whom your children associate with. Do not chase the friends of your children away from your home. Tell your children to bring home their friends. Access them. before you know whether to break that bond or to continue, allow them to continue with that relationship. Today, peer pressure has done a lot of damage to the youth, because drugs today you can find and buy in places. From what we gathered in the case of Chidima, is such that she was even ordering for them, and the supply was coming to where she was.
Right.
According to the security of that place, who claimed that somebody was bringing those things to her, which meant that she was placing order and they were coming. Internet arrangement. But the challenge here is parents have also failed their children. Parents have also failed their children. One, perhaps, I don't want to consider to economic factor.
Why not?
Yeah, yes, because today, in most homes, some parents push their children out to fend for them. Particularly the innocent ladies, the innocent girls. I've seen situations, and I've also taught situations where some parents will begin to compare their children with other children. To say, you just sit here every day to ask me for money. You ask me, are you not seeing Lagbaja's daughter, who is your mate? She's riding on a jeep.
Poverty playing a major role.
Well, I don't want to say poverty. That's I generalize it as economic factor, which I don't want to concede to. Poverty does not mean that if you're disciplined, you have to steal, that you have to get involved in some of those things. Whether you like it or not, discipline is eluding us now. There's no discipline in our homes. Many of us don't discipline our children. Many of us go to work from morning. Both parents, father and mother, go to work on daily basis. They leave the children to whose care? That is why you have all kinds of abuses on these children. You leave your children to the care of whom? At the end of the day, these children wander. These children mix up with people. You leave your child with a neighbor. What can you tell of that neighbor? How much of discipline does that neighbor have? If that neighbor is involved in drugs, she will start by sending your child to go buy it for her or for him.
And a curious child.
Not just someday you falling in love with the child, you say, why not test this? You give the child a little to test. And then it starts from there, abuse.
So parents, because we need to begin to coast home now, in trying to help their children handle peer pressure, how should they go about it? Because obviously right now, a lot has to be done. So much is eroding us, family values, that structure seems to be eluding us, that structure, and we must have a whole child being brought up. Wholeness is necessary in raising children, because the future of the country is what has been threatened here.
Before the parent, I think it has to start with the government.
How so?
The government owes the citizenry a lot of responsibility in terms of this decadence. Number one, the agencies responsible for the arrest of those who make the sale and who commonize all of this should be up and doing. Government has set up agencies. You have the NDLEA, for instance. Should they just limit the activities to the airports and border points?
Right.
It shouldn't be so. How many times have they been able to go bust places where these things are sold? Do they say they don't know? Do they say they don't know some of this? Cannabis you can find anywhere, in most places. Cannabis is smoked virtually you have places you can say you find, even on the roads, you find people smoking cannabis. Now, if you want to trace where that cannabis was bought, what do you do as a security agent? The first thing is to nab the man who is smoking it. The man will give you a lead to where he bought them, or he bought it, or he has been buying them.
So you follow that chain. So
when you follow that lead, you will get to the man who is retailing them. If you get to the man who is retailing them, you get to the man, that one will take you again to the person who is doing the wholesales. From the wholesales, you get to the man who is either planting or importing them. And so if you follow that chain, you'll be able to reduce access to those drugs. It's not just enough talking about parents now at home. Now, if you begin from that point and you minimize, you cannot eradicate it, forget it.
Okay.
You cannot eradicate the sale of drugs because drug is the next highest profiteering business. No, it's the first. Not even firearms now. Okay? Now, if you are able to, recently, the CIA, the FBI from America, they did world, what was it called exactly now, on drugs, where they went, when they did a simultaneous attack on drug dealers across the world.
Yeah.
It was done simultaneously. It was arranged by security agents, and in 48 hours, they busted places, and a lot were recovered. That's the kind of thing we need. Now, if you are able to reduce access, retail access points, then you have been able to make it difficult for those who use them to access them very easily.
Yeah.
Okay, if you are able to reduce that,
access.
then you come to parents now. Now, have you been able to identify whom your child is associating with, your peer group? Now, you can really not tell when your child leaves your home and goes to school. Your child leaves you and goes to school and comes back in 3 months. What your child had gotten him or herself involved in.
And that is where building values in the child is key.
It's very important.
Because once you build that value, the child, even though sees the drugs, will know that I should avoid it. That's where I was coming from.
Well, and then the child comes home. How many of us today will even want to look at the changes we are noticing in our children? A child who takes drugs in school for 3 months, comes home to stay home for 3 weeks, will take drugs before going back. Definitely, because once you have started it and you've gotten addicted, there's no way you can stay for 2 weeks without wanting a pint or a pinch of it. It's not possible. And then beyond that, what is our religious leaders doing?
Right.
People who gather in most religious homes, you find people, how much of this is being preached?
Right.
Then again,
Finally, because we have to go.
The body of the government, that is the agency that is out there to make announcement on behalf of the government, what's it called now?
National Drug Law Enforcement?
No, that's the one in charge of drugs. There's an agency in charge that speaks for oh shit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Choice of words, please.
Yes. That agency is supposed to be out. How many billboards have you found outside that will talk about abuse of drugs? And when you get go to homes where
orientation agency.
National, God bless you. Veronica, God bless you. National Orientation Agency, your elements are always very high up there.
All right.
Now, beyond that,
we have to go. Because we have a commercial.
It's the involvement of everybody, finally.
Everybody, yeah.
Yes.
Social commentator Darlington Umoru, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
All right, let's tell you now that the views and reaction of all our guests are theirs and have no connection with TVC News. That's all on TVC Breakfast this morning. Join us again for another edition tomorrow at 7.
You always deny
To stay safe. Up next is your